From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast with John F. Dini. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Hi, I'm John F. Dini, and this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast, and I'm sitting today with David Lupberger. David is a contractor specialist. He believes that super service only comes when a contractor can deliver consistent results, and that only happens with proven systems. He spent nearly 4 years writing the Remodeler's Turnkey program. I was just looking at it online. This series of manuals is a basic how-to on running a construction company. He recently authored the Home Asset Management Plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit in our second half. But from his base in Colorado, he now consults with building contractors to maximize company operations. David, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John.
It's great talking to you. Let me ask, how'd you get started? What made you decide on exit planning?
So I've been in the industry, as you can see by my hairline, for about 35 years. And, it really is a lifestyle as much as it is a profession. And people are really dedicated to the task and really a legacy. And it's really what custom building and remodeling does. So I do a lot of public presentations, live pre-COVID, and then a number of webinars during COVID. And now the events are opening up again. But what I saw again and again in the room is half of the attendees had either no hair or white hair. And
which would be either you or me.
Yeah. Which is either you or mine. It's an aging population, and it's a diminishing population. But these guys have built companies that are successful. So as I was looking around the room, and you can see, again, I'm in my 60s, I began asking people, what are you going to do when you retire? And there was always kind of an awkward silence. And then it usually was, well, I'm not going to retire.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I understand. But would you like to work less? So I would always kind of, reframe it. Would you like to work less? And how about delegating key functions to people and really creating a process, because what you've done has value. You've created goodwill. You've got a list of past clients. You've got subcontractor and supplier relationships that are vital. You work with each other, and you got loyal employees. What if you could monetize that and transfer it? And that's where the conversation starts. Because in all honesty, they don't know where to start.
Sure.
Okay.
Is this where you find your clients typically? Is at your presentations, or are they? How do you generate business? Let's make it simple.
It's primarily through the presentations, and I really think my clients are a reflection of the way they do business, because in residential custom building and remodeling, people don't hire you until they trust you.
Right.
And there's such a huge emotional investment in your home, not only emotional but financial. And so what good contractors do is they know how to build trust. And what I can do, because I sat in their chair for 35 years, I understand. I know what they're going through. I know the challenges. I know the issues. So when I speak with people, I can speak their language.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. So part of what I can do is beginning to ask a question like, what are you going to do when you retire? Is look at me. This is where my age is a benefit.
Right.
Look at me. I'm in the same, and literally, I'm in the same process. What does the next chapter look like? And more than that, what would I like it to look like? And the big, I think, key question is, as I'm working with contractors and we start these conversations, I've asked them, do you have a continuity plan? Because we can talk about a systematic way to systematize and transition your business. That's if it goes according to plan. What happens when it doesn't go according to plan? And I've yet to have one contractor I work with that has a documented continuity plan.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
And so I'm saying, look, let's just talk for the next 3 months. And let's just put a structure in place. And the reality is, once I begin speaking with people, that's when the trust grows. And I never know where the conversation is going to go. I'm sure you have the same experience.
Sure.
And so that's really what I'm looking for, which is, what does this next chapter look like? And what would you like it to look like?
Right. And the continuity plan is a great entree to exit planning.
Yes.
Because you're finding all the holes in the company.
Yes.
When you're saying who takes this over, and the answer is nobody, or who else knows how to do this, and the answer is nobody.
Right.
How do you expect a buyer to come in and be able to run your company if nobody but you knows how to do this? You've got to be his employee.
Well, an interesting key question is, especially with some of the older contractors, would you buy your company?
Yeah.
And, when they're being candid, they'd say, I probably wouldn't. And oftentimes they have children. Is your children coming into the business? And on more than one occasion, they want nothing to do with it.
Right.
And part of they've seen how hard they've worked. They've seen the ups and downs. And this all goes back to systems. That really what we're building now is a company that has a base in technology. And it's not person-based, but we can move into the systems so that this knowledge can be transferred and supported.
Well, and you're bringing up the whole idea of the remodeling industry is owner-centric.
Yes.
I mean, I know you used the owner centricity quiz quite a bit. But I mean, it's also the nature of the business. When you talk about being a trusted advisor, when you talk about having to build a trust relationship with the client, that is something the owner is doing.
Yes.
Very seldom do they have a project manager that goes out and builds those relationships, except in the very large companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have found as an exit planner is the majority of my construction clients are passing to managers. Are passing the company on to internal buyers.
Yeah, I think 80% of the time, if not more.
Okay, so you're seeing the same thing too.
Same thing. Yeah. And the irony is, oftentimes, if they've done well, the financial payoff is not primary. They want to make sure these key employees are rewarded. Right. They want to make sure their customers are taken care of. So it really is legacy and showing these key people, you've helped me build this. Let's work on a transfer. Here's the payoff. Time will tell.
Yeah, that's why I think even in the larger companies where the management team has not been capable of financing the size of the transaction, that's where we've done the ESOPs, for the same reasons.
Well, and the only issue we have in construction is, I'm going to say 90% of the companies are under 10 million.
Yeah.
And they're under 10 employees.
The two companies I'm thinking of were 55 and 70.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked to the managers. They wanted to do a management buyout, but we talked to the managers. And, the key question two questions asked. The first one is, would you like to be the owners of this company? And the answer is almost invariably, yeah, that sounds swell. Go home and explain to your wife that you're going to be putting your personal signature on a $40 million loan at some point. And all your assets have to be pledged to that. Somehow the attitude changes. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But that clears the air but we have an alternative where you can run the company, make terrific money, and not have your signature on $40 million.
Well, and the irony is I've discovered the contractors I'm working with, they don't want to retire. They don't want to just walk away because they enjoy, they wouldn't have done this for 30 and 40 years.
Sure.
So there are certain things. And so really what I'm doing a lot is helping people create that income stream, which is they will have a less responsible role in the company, but they still get to work on those key client relationships, still get to work on the most interesting designs, still get to work on relationship building, which is how the company grew.
Sure.
So that's been the interesting part, which is, and it's ironically, it's the same with me. At 68, I don't want to stop. I like what I do, but can I put it in such a fashion where that work-life balance really works? And that's the conversation I'm having with these guys. What is that work-life balance?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's the same here. I'm a couple of years older than you, and I love what I do, and I'm enjoying it. And my assistant asked me the other day. She said, "What does retirement look like for you?" And I said, 4 days a week.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And the guys I get to work with, it's virtual. This doesn't have to be done face to face.
Sure.
But you'll see from the turnkey system, there's pre-written job descriptions, checklists, procedures, book of forms. There's just a number of tools so that instead of somebody saying, where do I start? I can say, here's a roadmap.
Boy, that's great. That's
And
great.
you mentioned the owner centricity quiz.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things you're doing? What can you delegate? Let's prioritize that. And then your management succession worksheet. I mean,
Yes.
let's really begin looking at those areas, because where do you have potentially some help and where do you have no help? Because, let's just think in advance. How do we begin putting this in play?
Yeah, the management succession worksheet is, somebody told me the other day that he's using our tools in smaller companies, and then he has a different system that he uses for large companies. And he said, well, except for the management succession worksheet, I use that in the larger companies too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy way. I've used it with a $110 million company.
Wow.
It's just an easy way for them to look at where they are. And the comment when we finished it, as happens so often, and it's that stoplight methodology, the red, yellow, green, and they've looked at how much red is on that spreadsheet, and they've gone, I thought I ran a much better company than this.
Yeah. 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 And then it's really a very open-ended conversation, as of let's just take this in bite-sized pieces.
Sure.
And I love even just doing a kind of a 90-day look ahead. What can we let's just do one thing in the next 90 days. And then maybe it's two things in the following 90 days, but they begin to see there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is possible. They see the handoffs, and with good people, then they see these good people respond.
Yeah.
And I've always said to contractors, your good people want responsibility. They want it. Now, your job is to give them the responsibility and let them do their job and not micromanage. And that's the biggest issue, which is you got to let go.
Sure. And as you've described it, it's an artisan mentality. I mean,
It is.
there is personal pride tied up in everything. It's not ground up tract homes. It's not, steel commercial buildings. Not that people aren't proud of the work they do, no matter what they do. But I mean, in home remodeling, it's a whole different story.
It's, what my comparison is? I compare it to elective surgery. And I just went through a hip replacement. And the reality is, before any kind of surgery, elective surgery like that, basically the outcome is uncertain. You're a little unsure because, it's your body. And then you desperately hope you've got a good surgeon.
Yeah.
And if I compare that to remodeling, a huge emotional investment, it's your home, not only emotional, but financial investment. The outcome is uncertain. They've all heard stories, and they desperately hope they have the right contractor. So you have to acknowledge that emotional investment as much as the financial. And that's really the primary difference between residential and commercial.
That's well put. Well put. We're going to have to stop for a second so that we can pay for the podcast. And after this word from our sponsor, we'll be right back.
How would your practice survive if only 25% of your clients were happy with your work? How many referrals would you get? Would you advertise that success rate? Over the last decade, both the Exit Planning Institute and PwC have surveyed owners and found that 75% were profoundly unhappy a year after their exits. In 10 years, the exit planning industry has done little to fix this issue. Business owners need purpose, direction, and activity after exiting. Planning for that starts with your very first coaching conversation. We work with advisors who believe that clients should be happy after exiting. ExitMap is a structured discovery process that helps you have deeper conversations about client options, objectives, and life after the business. We help you launch better transitions. Take a test drive at exitmap.com.
Welcome back. I'm here with David Lupberger, who is really filling us in on his expertise in the remodeling construction market. I mentioned the Remodelers Turnkey program, which is available and is a basic book, as he described, with everything from job descriptions to policies and procedures. I wanted to ask you about your new authorship, the Home Asset Management Plan. Tell me a little bit about that, if you would, David.
You know, it's such a great question. This is like a softball pitch to me. All right.
Yes,
So I'm happy to take a good swing. So I remember when I was still remodeling, we'd spend months sometimes in the design process and really drilling down on what people wanted. And you really get to know people and work with people. Then the job would start, and a job could last 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the size of the project. At the end of the project, I'd shake their hand and I'd say, if I can help you in the future, let me know. And then we'd start that process all over again. And the reality is any good company has recurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with a company in Boulder, Colorado, where he was just so unsure, what do my past clients need? How do we check in? And so we created, I call the Client for Life plan, which is there is a proactive 90-day warranty where I tell people when the job sells, and I'm telling this to contractors, tell them we're not done. I'm going to come back in 3 months. And I'm going to do a walkthrough just to make sure everything's working. And by the way, then I come back at 11 months because there's a 12-month express warranty on all these materials. I just want to make sure everything's working. And so what I discovered in both the 3-month visit and the 11-month visit, 1 in 4 clients, literally 25%, said, David, as long as you're here, can we talk about X? And look, there's no better marketing than getting back in a past client's house. It's not an email, it's not a phone call. You're there and they're reminded. And I've got to tell you, if somebody does a major remodeling project, kitchen, second floor addition, home office, whatever it is, then the areas that have not been upgraded are suddenly highlighted.
Right.
And I've got to tell you, every client, unless you did a whole house renovation, they're already thinking about what they'd like to do next. They're thinking about it. And there's something called construction fatigue. They're not ready to do it right now.
Sure.
All right. But guess what? If I can stay in contact. So at the 11th month, I actually do a simple home evaluation. It takes 45 minutes, not a home inspection, a simple evaluation, giving clients a list of recommendations to help them take care of their home. Go through a simple interview, and in that interview, there's always 2 or 3 days of service items, things they just didn't know what to do, how to address. And so I'm telling people I can aggregate all that, we can bundle it, and why don't we coordinate just getting all that done for you? And again, the client already knows you, they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, mean you can do all of this? I'll just do it for here's the daily rate plus materials. It will all be taken care of. We make an agreement. And here we are in the summer. So I'm saying, let's get all this taken care of because your home will be ready for winter. And at the end of that first service call, I'm telling people then, come next spring when the weather warms up, can I call you to make sure your home's ready for summer? What do you think people say?
Why, sure.
Why not? And suddenly you're invited back. And what I've done is I've turned the business model, instead of they call, I come, it's now I call, it's time for your seasonal tune-up. And all I can tell you is this is a marketing pipeline, because through that, at least, twice a year connection, follow-up conversation, you then know what they're thinking about. And because you're in their home, they're not going to call anybody else.
Right.
And so it really, this is the recurring revenue element of taking a business like this and begin to introduce those client relationships. And I can then take people and literally say over a 10-year period, if you put in service, maintenance, component replacement, aging in place, and remodeling, I mean, we're talking about adding minimum $100,000 in work over a 10-year period. And if people do this, just 10 times a year, they're potentially adding another $1 million a year on an annual basis to their pipeline. They can document that revenue, and now they've increased company value based on recurring revenue.
No, that's terrific. I've never heard of a recurring revenue strategy in construction. That's terrific.
And nobody's doing it.
Impressive.
And this is a no-brainer. I mean, the clients, when you say, let's talk about your house, let me give you some list of recommendations, why say no? Again, my whole point here is you become an advisor, a trusted advisor. And it's not just for the work they want done, but if you need a painter, if you're wondering some small electrical job, plumbing, call me. I've already got these people. I don't want you to worry about finding the right person. You've already worked with us, and here's my tagline. When any project ends, our relationship is just beginning.
That's neat. That's neat. How can we apply that to exit planning?
I'd have to think about that.
Let's think about that. We'll come back at some point in the future and discuss that, because that would be really neat. Like, okay, you're out of your business, but I'm going to drop by a couple times a year to make sure that you're happy.
Boy, what a novel thought, because like I said, the guys I'm working with, if you told them they couldn't go back to work, and hopefully there's no illness or injury, they would be bored to tears.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why we do this. It's intellectually and emotionally challenging, and there is a financial and emotional reward.
Yeah, I've got to start building recurring revenue into my explain clients. Now you got me thinking. We're going to have another show on this, David. I can see it coming already.
We have the relationships. Why aren't we optimizing those relationships?
That's great. David Lupberger, thank you, sir. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you a little bit better. If other advisors want to contact you, especially if somebody's got a client in construction that they're struggling with, how can they reach you?
It's my website is remodelforce.com. So www.remodelforce.com. And then my email, david@remodelforce.com. And you'll see, a number of the different tools, some educational tools, some sample videos of some programs I've done. And all this is based on relationship, as you well know. And so if there are questions, let's see where it goes.
That's great. David Lupberger, thank you very much. And
thank you, John.
Look forward to talking to you again soon.
It's been fun. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks.